Member of Parliament's Poverty Reduction Committee, Edward Bawa, is calling on the police to arrest Chief Executive Officer of the Zongo Development Fund and investigate him over alleged procurement breaches to the tune of 5 million cedis. He's also urging the president to fire Arafat Sulemana Abdullahi. He says the misuse of the fund is a disappointment to residents in Zongo communities.
And foremost, let's look at the rationale behind even the Zongo Development Fund. As per government's own policy, it was meant to intervene in the lives of people living in Zongos and the neighborhoods, by the inner cities and what have you. And this was supposed to help reduce poverty. So if you have a situation where 5 million Ghana cedis has been misappropriated, and all laws associated with the expenditure of such monies have been broken, and that there have been an admission of the CEO of the fund that yes, he is aware that the procurement laws that govern the expenditure of such monies were breached, and the person is still in office. The person has not been handed over to the police for further investigation. Then this is a slap in the face of people who live in Zongo, people who are supposed to be direct beneficiaries of these monies, people for whom their names have been used to expend this money. It's really a disappointment to the government. So
your expectation is that who exactly acts on this? The president, the Zongo Development Minister? What exactly do you want to say? First and foremost, the
Zongo Development Fund falls under the Minister for Zongo, is it inner cities and Zongo Development. I think that for now, the minister should have even made a statement about what the position of government is. His Excellency the President has always indicated that he needs evidence to be able to show, to be able to act on some, what they call it, corrupt allegations. We have a situation where the man, per the report we get from Corruption Watch, that they have him on tape admitting that he had breached those procurement laws. There's clear evidence that some of the items that were procured were way above market prices. With all this, even if the minister in charge of that sector isn't acting, the president should be acting now, because per our own architecture, the minister works in the person of the president. And so if the minister is not acting, the president should have by now acted.
And you don't want to see prosecution as well beyond the minister being removed?
Yeah, obviously. For me, I have always...
beyond the CEO being removed?
You see, for me, I have always believed that the laws must apply. But I also believe that we don't prosecute, we don't just sentence people in public. I expect that now, at least the minimum is that the person should have been out of office. The minimum is that the person should have been handed over to the state security to investigate, and timelines given for the findings. And based on the findings, the Attorney General can take a decision to prosecute.
Some argument has been made that some of the items were for procurement of COVID-19 related relief items. So then all of that had to happen in a rush. The hand sanitizers, the PPEs, and so some make the assumption said breaches was expected.
You see, the fact that things were supposed to be in a rush to do some of these things, that is why you usually, even in the procurement law, there are provisions that are made for such emergency situations. And on such emergency situations, when you write to the PPE was not living outside Ghana. The PPA would have definitely known very clearly that under the circumstances they needed to have met and then approve some of these things. For you to go and purchase items, for example, you realize that under the COVID in here, it said that they spent about 200,000. That was above his threshold. The threshold was supposed to be 100,000, and you were going 100% over your threshold. It was only fair that within these particular circumstances, if you had written to what they call the PPA, asking for permission to even sole source that, you would have done, because under those conditions, it would have fallen under those conditions. But you don't go expend those monies and then you then write letters to ratify the activity. That is the first point. It is also very clear that even within those same circumstances, the market values of those items were higher than what was sold in the market. So beyond just the fact that the whole idea of it was an emergency situation, there was a deliberate attempt to shortchange the what they call it, the state. And you see, I will tell you one thing. People have, and we have cause to believe that people have used COVID as an excuse to milk this state. Indeed, if you were to go to the district assemblies, there were if you look, all the district assemblies were giving first 166,000 Ghana cedis. The second batch was 50,000 Ghana cedis to buy some of these PPEs like sanitizers, what have you, and other things. Most of the district assemblies cannot account for these monies, and all under the name of COVID. You had private entities now having to intervene and get these things for people. And so to use COVID as an excuse to breach the laws in this way, and it's a 5 million Ghana cedis. Do you know how much that can do? Let's look at the, what they call it, the Zongo areas. Some of the basic amenities that they need, they don't have it. And you are supposed to superintend over the expenditure of such an amount of money, and you go on to you are not able to account for 5 million, how you used it and how you were within the laws. That is so sad.
Edward Bawa there will speak to Joseph Opoku Gakpo in just a moment, but a bit of background before we do that. A Corruption Watch investigation uncovered that the Zongo Development Fund has engaged in alleged procurement malpractices in the purchase of goods, services and works worth 5 million Ghana cedis. Now, the management of the fund allegedly superintended procurement breaches such as inflation of contract figures and breaching of entity heads threshold. Corruption was established that 200,000 cedis of the 5 million cedis was spent on a contract for COVID-19 PPEs. Joseph is with us via Zoom. Now, all of this happened on the sidelines of, the main sitting, but has any of this work found space in Parliament's proceedings? Have any other members besides Edward Bawa taken interest in it? Joseph, your mic is muted.
Okay, yeah. Now you can hear me, I guess. So on the floor of the House itself, no, this is not a conversation that has started under any of the discussions that the House is dealing with. The expectation is that the House will be going on break tomorrow, God willing, although there are indications that may be extended. I've been seeking to engage other members of the Poverty Reduction Committee in particular on this very issue, because that's a committee that's supposed to be responsible for various initiatives that deal with various projects that are aimed at eliminating corruption. This is not a very active committee. I doubt, Daniel, yourself, that you are aware that such a committee exists here in Parliament.
I must confess, I was not.
It's actually not done much in terms of helping deal with the issues. And from the indication that's coming from Edward Bawa, who is the MP for Bongo and a member of the committee, this is an issue that, beyond him raising it within the media space, that the CEO of the Zongo Development Authority be dealt with according to law, he would seek to get the necessary processes for the committee to pay attention to that particular corruption issue.
Okay, so he says that he will make the committee pay attention to it. But Joseph, from your knowledge in Parliament, what can a committee do when a case like this comes up?
So usually the best case scenario in terms of the House dealing with this would have to come at the level of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, so that when the year comes to an end and the Auditor General audits the accounts of the Zongo Development Fund, then a report on that will eventually come to Parliament, along with a report on all the other expenditures as far as the government is concerned. And then when the committee begins to look into this sector by sector, they will delve into that. They would go ahead and invite the various managers of the fund to come respond to the various questions. And so that's probably the only way. And then at the level of the committee, the Public Accounts Committee, a recommendation will come to Parliament, and then demands can then be made when it comes to refund or recommendations on actions that actually have to be taken. But what we've seen over the years is that any such processes will take quite a while in order for it to eventually come to an end. So, for example, when it comes to the Auditor General's report, as far as 2020 is concerned, we may not see it in Parliament until maybe late 2021 or 2022, beyond which a lot of time would have passed. At the level of the Poverty Reduction Committee itself, the best that they can do will be probably to ask the minister in charge of the sector to come provide the necessary clarification, and that may probably just happen mainly at the level of the committee, or them moving to the fund to go ask questions. And there is very little that the committee can do beyond what the Public Accounts Committee itself can do in maybe a few months or in a few years' time.
That clarifies a lot. Thank you very much, Joseph. But stay with us, because Parliament has approved an $86 million loan facility from the Israeli Discount Bank for the purchase of armored vehicles for the Ghana Armed Forces, amidst concerns from the minority that the House was not furnished with enough details. $80 million of the amount will go to Elbit Systems Land Limited of Israel for the supply of the armored vehicles, whilst the rest will go to firms arranging the facility and other associated costs. Earlier, the minority requested that the approval is done in camera because they had concerns they did not want to raise in public for security reasons. Right, let me go back to Gakpo for some more details of this. Quite an interesting request there from the minority, Joseph.
Yes, and so what happened was, when eventually this morning, the chairman of Parliament Finance Committee, Dr. Marcus Bawa, moved a motion that the House approves this particular facility. It's totaling an $86 million facility from the Israeli Discount Bank. It's actually in two versions. There is a separate loan facility of $74 million, and then there is a different one to the tune of $12 million. When the chairman of Parliament Finance Committee, Dr. Marcus Bawa, moved the motion that the House actually approves that particular facility, the minority chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, indicated that there had been a conversation on this at the level of leadership. And even after the Committee on Defense and Interior, as well as the Committee on Finance, looked at the entire facility, they had a number of concerns. But he said that they, the minority, did not want to raise the issue on the floor because it's a sensitive security issue. And so they had earlier engaged the defense minister and other officials, and the agreement was that the House would move into a closed sitting to consider this particular loan facility, and also the commercial agreement.
So the closed sitting will happen?
No. So eventually the House approved this in the open because the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, had a response to that in the absence of Muntaka Mubarak, and in discussions with his bosses, Harun Idrisu, the minority leader himself, and his deputy, James Saveji, an agreement had been reached that they will go ahead and approve this in public, but MPs will be measured in the kind of commentary that they will run on the issue.
Joseph Opoku Gakpo, thank you very much for joining us from Parliament with the latest from there.